Maria's here.
Heck yeah.
Okay. So I think this is like our fourth book club, right?
Sounds right.
Yeah. A couple of y'all have been to each and every single one of them, which is awesome. So this is one that I think Margie's here, but she's not here. Yeah, she recommended this book. And then a lot of people hopped on. So I thought this was a very much a real estate specific, but also took a page from our previous book, the Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference. So this is kind of like this is like a 2.0, Never Split the Difference, right? So the way I normally do this is we just kind of dive through. We've broken this up into sections that we're going to read each week and then discuss. This is not for me to talk the whole time, please. So would love for everyone to chip in as we kind of, and ideally I want to march through it a little bit, you know, by chapter by chapter, just so we can follow the progression. If you have a comment, shout out kind of like what the page number you're referring to so everyone can maybe scramble there and take a look and highlight. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's dive in here. So anything from the forward that you guys had any questions about or thoughts about, aha moments? And and again, I'll throw out a comment. Fear-based, right on page X. We all operate, I think we catch ourselves in this very much a scarcity model. We're fearful of not getting something and sometimes make some dumb decisions based on that. I'll put it as dumb, but anyone else read anything else into that? Do you guys see that? Live that?
I had started listening to this book and then I got the hard copy, so.
Yeah.
I'm trying,
I think it's quality of life.
where the heck is it in the
Quality of
papers?
life is what they're talking about.
Quality of life. Yep. Yep. Okay.
But I find that fear is a bad thing. It may be motivating for some people, but I think it's a bad thing because if you're an agent that's running your business based off of fear, that's going to affect your ability to provide a genuine service to your clients. And that's where, the dollar bill becomes more a motivating factor rather than their best interest in mind. And if you're fearing that you're not going to make the next bill payment or the next mortgage payment, then you might make, bad decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like if you think about it, like if you think of another profession, right? Like I wouldn't want my doctor operating out of fear, right? Like I wouldn't want my attorney who's representing me operating kind of on a lose-lose type of situation. So
I had a thought recently, and it wasn't in regard to this, but replacing in my own mind fear with curiosity. If I can convince myself, don't be so fearful, look at it as curious.
wow. That's deep. I like that. Curiosity replacing fear. Okay. Introduction. Anything you guys highlighted in the introduction?
You can't overcome emotions with fact, logic, and reason.
Page 5.
Yeah, that would be cool for me.
Can't overcome emotion with fact, logic, and reason. Why not?
Because emotion is a driving force for a lot of people. Once you make an emotional decision, a lot of times the logic just doesn't click. It doesn't make sense. I mean, how many times have you had a buyer who's ready to walk away from a house, because of an emotional decision which is wrong? No matter how much logic and how much you try to feed them, like rationalize with them, they just don't get it sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, it's almost like I think on like when you hear political debates on Facebook, I think people make up their mind and then find logic that just backs up. And you can find any logic or reason that sometimes will support your point, right? Like, I'm not buying the house because there's an economic crisis going on in Denmark that might affect the property value, right? Like, you will find some logic.
So you had to bring up Greenland, did you?
I tried staying as far away from
Real estate, isn't it?
I'm not Denmark.
Real estate transaction, right?
Right.
I think that also is that you have to dig into what their motivation is, because a lot of times they become frustrated. Because their contract didn't get accepted, even though it was very good, and so then they want to back off saying, well, you know, like, why is it happening?
You have to find their pain to know what their pain is.
Uh-huh.
I actually found this book to be pretty interesting because I've been in the business for a long time, but it refreshes your memory to realize that sometimes you just go along in a pattern, right? And you think, oh, that pattern's gonna continue, and then the market flip-flops on you, or
Yep.
the snow comes in, or the blah, blah, blah happens, you know, so all these outside influences make you second doubt yourself, so.
Yep. And continuing on page 5, and again, what you're kind of talking about, Nancy, is a little bit of the, the chase, convince, close, right? And he's framed it differently than I think most of us have learned it, right? It's like probably prospect, present, cash that check, right? Like, but this is it's put in more of a negative light, which kind of he's trying to put out there that maybe some of the way we operate our businesses is part of that problem. And I think that's what he's going to do, is challenge us a little bit on this.
Well, I started really getting into it, he was really challenging me, and I was
Yeah.
like, you know, that's kind of good, it throws you off of your loop.
Yep.
And it makes you look into other things.
Yeah. Anything else in the introduction?
I just knew from the introduction that I'm in love with this book.
Oh, really?
I am too.
Why? You're in love with it. Why?
This is how I conduct my business. I don't chase, I don't convince. I don't need you if you don't want me.
Yeah.
Just for him to say that, I'm just like, I didn't want to put the book down, but I had to.
Okay.
It just speaks to me.
Because I think we all at some point, you get a little bit of, oh, I really need the money, and you start chasing.
Yeah,
Instead of backing off and saying to yourself, is this what I really want? Because it adds to your frustration, and therefore your business goes awry.
I mean, on page 6, essentially, it's like, in reality, the inside, the middle, and outside world operate independently from each other. The world will go on the way it does, regardless of how you feel about it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And no external results will ever bring the lasting joy and peace you crave in your life. And I'm like, that's how I conduct my business.
Yep. So that's page 6, right there, the third paragraph. Yep. And that's a very stoic kind of belief. If anyone study the Stoics, right? It's just the world does not care about what your feelings are sometimes. Actually, all the time.
That's fine. That's my husband. We didn't know this was a relationship.
Yeah, this is our first reference to a relationship counseling. It's all good. This will come, trust me, we will, between kids, parents, and spouses and loved ones. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Good stuff.
I guess a big aha moment for me is what's talking about you know, when you do what you think is the best presentation, listing or a buyer's presentation, you think you got it. You know, you get all the buying signals and they're buying into you. You broke the ice, you established a great rapport. And then you find out later they didn't hire you. And really it boils down to is the fact that they didn't make them feel understood.
Yeah, that goes on the next chapter.
Yeah, and that carries you around to the next chapter. That was for me was huge because there's been times that I thought to myself, like, I did everything right.
Right.
Like, what happened?
Because they already
ghosting?
made a decision.
They already made a decision.
Exactly.
They already made
Yeah.
the decision and you have to decide,
Yeah,
you know, did they already make this decision before you walked in? You could have
Yeah.
done everything perfect.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's happened to me many a time. Oh, well, you know, we already had this person in mind, but everybody told us to interview you. I just wasted my time.
yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, again, we've learned from a lot of the books we've done, and we're going to get into is it's the ask that you have in between. Sometimes we have there's a reaction or an event that happens, and then we automatically go into this, you know, presentation, convincing, pitching, selling, but we failed to ask some questions for fear that we will hear something that
Yeah.
will, you know, slow the momentum of that initial, you know, positive event. And all we've done is just prolong the pain, right?
Not only that, but like,
Joel's in the,
Yeah,
Instead of
I think
ripping the
that-
Band-Aid off.
I think in general, like, what's most important to buyers and sellers, trust. That's the number one driving force is trust. And I can say honestly, for every past client I've had that was always doing business with me, they've all said the same thing. We trust you, we feel comfortable working with you. You understand our needs. And that's,
Because you heard them.
yeah, you heard them and then I made them feel understood, basically.
Can I
Right.
chime in?
Yeah.
So I've had a couple listing appointments since I started reading the book, and I love the book too. Because I just see myself like in every page of the book. But this last listing appointment that I went on, it was kind of weird because they emailed me and wanted me to, they said, "Can we talk?" And I said, "Okay, I'll call you." And they said, "Oh, we thought you would come over." And I always do a phone interview first. But on the phone interview, they said they were interviewing 3 agents. And I right away, I was like, oh crap, I'm going to be the fool. I need to let go. I need to just tell him I'm not coming, because that's what he says to do in the book. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So I said that I would come and talk to them. So the funny thing is when I went to talk to them, I just decided that I wasn't going to talk, that I was just going to ask the questions and get be a good listener, hear what they had to say. And I wrote all my questions out because I didn't want to leave anything out. So I had all my questions written out. And I never gave my listing presentation. I never gave the presentation. They just needed me to hear them. And then they said they wanted to think about it. I was like, crap, I'm the fool. But they came to my open house that very day and said, "You're our girl. Come list our house." But I'm telling you, it's because I sat there and listened. I asked the questions and I didn't say, "This is what I do. This is my advertising. This is that." I did do some of that pre-listing. And I did drop information off in their mailbox, which I don't usually do, and they love that. But I guess the point I want to drive home is just that the listening part, the questions and the listening part, they felt respected. They felt understood. And they interviewed the agent that sold them the house. So I feel pretty lucky right now.
Awesome. Very cool.
Congratulations, Maria.
Yeah.
I've been trying to break into Goshen Oaks, and it's in Goshen Oaks. So I'm like, yay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else in the introduction?
I'm listening to it online, so I'm kind of, I don't have the book in front of me.
So in the introduction, he mentions Tom Brady, page 8.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. You can hate on me for that, but I read TB12. He's a machine. His work ethics, I mean, I love the man. I know him through someone personally. And he is the real deal.
Yeah. What is pliability?
Being able, I mean, basically stretch, moldable, not rigid, right? So his whole TB12, that workout is elongating, stretching, massaging, and which I was sold into as well. And I
Yep.
still am. I mean, I did my mobility exercises this morning.
Yep.
But Tom Brady was onto something and nobody, he knew. And so he mentioned, that was another thing. I fell in love with this book because he mentioned Tom Brady.
Yeah. Cool.
Because he even says in here on page 9, a normal cycle, right? Train, play, get hurt, rehab over and over.
Yeah.
Pliability removes the tension and stress from the training process and eliminating the main cause of injury, right? So what's pliability here?
Well, I think yeah, what is pliability? Here. That's the group. What is
Yeah.
pliability here? What do y'all see is what is the stretching part in this?
Adapting,
Okay,
changing,
how?
communicating, then empathy, using your words to connect with someone in a way that's in an emotional response rather than a logical response.
How do you know what my emotional well-being or status is?
I listen
Okay.
to you. And
How do you get to listen?
like being quiet, right? And letting the person
But I
speak.
can play the quiet game with you.
Sure.
Listen to him.
So you can start with probing questions.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. I'm messing with you.
Yeah, I know you are. The funny part about this that strikes me is I don't know what kind of training everyone in the room has had, but a lot of the training I had was through Buffini when I first started in the
Yeah.
business. And a lot of my background's from Llewellyn agents that I worked with, which
Yep.
a lot of you guys probably know. It's the opposite of what I was taught, is to, when someone's emotional, approach them with logic. And this is completely opposite of that, which this makes more sense to me. And I have been practicing my business with more empathy over the last 5 or 6 years. But it didn't register in my mind that I was doing that. It's just something that I gravitated toward because the other way wasn't working,
Yes.
And then later in the book, they have another chapter, the whole part coming, but.
Yeah.
This is the tactical empathy.
Yes. Yeah. That's on page 11.
Yeah. Actually, I think first on my 9, but I think we discussed it more in 11. Yeah. But being empathetic is more than just being tactical, it's being genuine to me. I think that person needs to feel that you are genuinely vested in their life and what's going on and what their situation is. And I think that's what builds that trust. And that's going to be the decision, what makes the decision for them, whether they're going to work with you or not.
Yep. Yeah, and with the pliability on 11, just under the box, it says tactical empathy. It says just as pliability removes tension from athletic training, tactical empathy removes stress out of the real estate sale.
I had that.
Yeah. It cuts off the agent's doom loop before it even starts. No more endless rounds of chasing, convincing, closing.
You remember from Chris Voss's book, where you want the person to get to say that's right, rather
Yep.
than you're right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We played that game a couple times. Anything else in the introduction?
When you explain your value, you become a commodity,
What page is that?
page 11,
Okay.
basically, when you cultivate trust, you become
irreplaceable. I think for me, it builds more value rather than just being a commodity. If you just give them value, explain your value, and they're like, I can do your job, or what I need you for. That kind of response. But then once you build trust within that relationship, then you become irreplaceable, you become more valuable to them. Where they want to work with you, not just, want to take your information and run.
Anything else in introduction? Almost at the end of this chapter.
Yeah, the 13. How you do business is more important than how much business you do. Again, I think that's more about quality of life and working with the right people. Sometimes business can be really painful when you're working with the wrong group of people. It could be a decision that you regret.
Yep. And one of the, and I talk to agents a lot about this in coaching, is a lot of agents, you see, we have a scoreboard here, right? You go into MLS, you can see, at least you think you see how well another agent is doing. But sometimes when they are chasing convincing, their profitability goes really low. That some of those agents are not as profitable as you might be with your half the number of transactions and half the volume. And that's a hard thing, because sometimes we're, we see it, right? Like we compare a lot. And that's one thing that almost that stoicism, like you almost have to shut out like what other people are doing, because some of that the world doesn't necessarily care how you feel about how someone's doing. It's up to you. And then the last thing I'd say is like the new neural pathways. Again, I think some of this is going to challenge us unless you're Caroline and this is like, just a complete reaffirmation. But I think like Maria was saying, we're going to fight some of this stuff a little bit, right? Because this is not what we've normally been. You were saying this, Brian, too. We've been trained. But we can create new neural pathways. And anything else in that introduction?
Just saying that I'm still a work in progress.
I know.
My neural pathways have been blocked so many times, that's why I'm so slow with this.
All right, ready for chapter 1?
Yeah, no.
Yay. Okay. Anything in chapter 1?
Well, it goes right back to what you just said a minute ago. Things don't always appear on the surface, what they are underlying, somebody that has something that's.
What page are you looking at?
The example of the Theranos company, which is probably 18. The biggest failure of business, and right up there with Enron and other corporations.
Smartest people in the room.
Right, exactly. And telling the world that they're the greatest, and the world believed them without any proof or any substance whatsoever. All speculative.
Yep.
It's like you're comparing yourself to someone that's, like you said, might be doing more volume, but they may be spending, a ton of money to have that volume. And at the end of the day, they really didn't make any more money than you did.
Yep.
Best prediction of future behavior is past behavior.
What page is that?
Page 20.
Okay.
I think what my key takeaway from that was really it's important to ask or talk about your past, especially if they bought or sold before. Because the price too much, but just find out generally speaking, like what was the experience like? What was the outcome? And based on what the response is, there's a very good chance that they're gonna make the same kind of decision in the future. And based on that, you can use that to your advantage to help guide them a certain way or help you say the right things, help you connect better with them, especially when you're trying to build trust with them.
Well, the other thing too is that you learn what they don't buy.
Yeah.
Don't repeat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one part of the ninja process.
Yeah.
Ask them
Yep.
right? You ask them what that you enjoyed about it and you find out what they didn't like.
In through reading Ninja, many of us, oh yeah, I always ask like the kind of a past behavior question. But even in this is the first, like, of these 7 laws, this one comes first because I think that is, and even in Ninja, we talked about this a lot in Ninja, it's sometimes you're asking the right questions, you're just not right, you're not asking at the right time.
Yeah.
And asking past behavior questions first is a really good thing to do. Because I can tell you what I've done in the past very easily, cold. I can't tell you what I want to do in the future, cold, right off the bat, right? And it's a progression. So absolutely, whenever if you just get stuck with a client or meeting someone, sometimes that first question is to ask past tense questions. They will be able to rattle off very quickly their past experience.
I wanted to say on page 19 where your influence won't stick until you make them feel understood. And I think that asking the past questions helps to make them feel understood.
Yep.
And also that emotions often override logical reasoning.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, the 7 essential truths of human behavior. First one, Rich pointed out, was best indicators, past behavior, right? And that even gets into, again, a lot of the books we've done all kind of connect in some way. Atomic Habits talks a lot about, we just have to make so many mental decisions every day that we go back to our typical patterns because it just eliminates 1,000 new. Remember during COVID, like we had decision fatigue because our normal patterns, our normal routines were thrown completely sideways. Therefore, like, how do I get the kids online to learn today before I, get on my own Zoom with this and that, and how do I go out and right? Like, it was like all these things that you just had never had to consider. It was tiring.
That's why women are better, because we're multitaskers.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. But women struggle with compartmentalizing stuff too, when to cut it off. And that's, I mean, I think that is it's a yin and a yang for men and women.
I was only joking.
Oh, no, yeah.
She wasn't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we also go to the and give too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You give so much of yourself that you, like they say, do you take time off for yourself and feel guilty? Yeah, I do. Even going on a short week vacation, just tell people that, they're like, oh, so you're not gonna be working on our house the whole time, You're like, don't worry, I got it covered. But
Sounds like boundaries.
Yep.
So just at the last paragraph of the one, the best predictor of future behavior, at the last paragraph, it says, don't forget, it applies to you too. It's gonna be hard to break your old habits, essentially.
Hard for people to change, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I would also tell the previous paragraph where, it's natural human behavior that, under stressful circumstances, that you're gonna do what feels comfortable to you, which is what you've done previously. So it's all the more important that when they're doing something different, whether it's a first time home buyer, or if it's a seller who's going through a process that they didn't go through before, that's all the more to use empathy when they're trying to make them feel comfortable about making the decision or doing something different with them before. If they're not comfortable. Whereas if they're doing something that they've done this before, then it makes it a little more easier.
Mhm.
You don't have to be redundant. You don't have to say something or do something that doesn't make any sense.
Number two, there's no such thing as an open mind, as a fully open mind. Anyone believe that?
Depends if you meditate or not.
Yeah. Right.
Every minute of your life.
Still open your mind better.
People have core convictions.
Yeah.
But it's hard for them to let go.
Yeah, I mean, Nancy, why do we even have to have meditation if we had an open, right? Like, I mean, I think meditation gets you to almost, because there's all this stuff that comes in unconsciously.
That's the negativity part.
Yeah, meditation gets you to a point where you recognize the subconscious, non-conscious, and say, okay, that is not a rational fear. That is not a right. Like you have a moment to actually pull all of it apart, right? Like, but that's like what, 10, 15 minutes a day. You're trying to fight the battle, right?
Well, you have to start out fighting the battle.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, I think that's what these books do. Is that you have to start off on the right foot.
Yep.
To clear your mind.
Yeah, I mean,
Just get into the right non-negative, I mean, because negativity is our nemesis
It's contagious.
and it's contagious.
Well, it's easiest.
I know, which is why I meditate.
It's easier to go negative than it is to go, it takes more pushing process.
I know.
It's like, it's easy to say no.
You don't need to meditate to be negative.
But if you're operating out of fear, then it's easy to be real negative because fear is a negative emotion.
Does anybody meditate? Yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do every day.
at night, not during the day though.
I believe that it helps.
I'm not trying to get anywhere in meditation, just being placed, so I. Different things, really do it is different. Yeah, I eat one. You do? Yeah, sometimes I. Yes. It's this. It's in the.
We see how you draw.
Thank you. I don't draw anything when I'm meditating, but like circle.
One big takeaway from this, I guess the first, I was talking about as far as there's still things fully in mind. I think it's 22 when,
Page 22.
yeah, when it says that people, by the time they get to, they've already done some research.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of their mind decisions are already made up. That's why it's important. I know whenever I meet with a buyer or seller, I always ask them, you know, find out what their applications are. What do they know about the process? What are they looking for? So I mean, like, I mean, for example, we're with a buyer, you know, you ask them, what do you know about the home buying process? What are you expecting to get out of this? What's your expectations? When you find that out, you really learn a lot about what they've done already in, you know, in advance, because a lot of times when people do their own research, a lot of times they're wrong. They develop unrealistic expectations because of the source they get it from. And it's your job to make sure you put them back on track so they have a realistic expectation. So the outcomes can be, you know, mutual. It's going to be something that they're expecting.
Okay, I just had an interesting text message because I wanted somebody to come today. And they said, well, I got the sample of the book and I just can't seem to get through it. It's like they say the same things a gazillion times, but don't we need them a gazillion times? Because every time you hear something else, it transforms you into a better picture or another way of thinking about it. So, yeah, is it repetitive? Aren't our real estate classes repetitive? And yet we gotta do it, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, I mean, with these books, yeah, a lot of times it is repetitive because it is not sinking in.
Yeah.
I said I'm slower.
Well, because a lot of us don't have an open mind.
And there's a negativity coming in, right?
So three, this is, you know, jumping ahead to three now. Humans are hardwired to be negative, right?
Yeah.
And that's a fight or flight type of we're just, we are still, we have not been off of the Serengeti running from lions for very long, right? Like we may think that we are super advanced, but there is still a lot of our little, what they call the amygdala, the lizard brain is still acts very much like, our not too distant relatives who were constant. I mean, and if you think about humans, like we were not top of the, until we found fire, we were not top of the food chain, right? We were scavenging after the dogs. I mean, we just were not. We were smart, but we just didn't have the manpower, so to speak, to fight a lion or a dinosaur.
Kind of baby's like third word is no.
That's true.
They're like mama, daddy,
first.
no.
Human nature.
It says most real estate agents are bogged down in negativity.
This is my biggest weakness.
Negativity?
Yeah. Actually, my SWOT analysis, this is my biggest weakness because the negativity I feel sometimes, Rob can probably test this, because a lot of times I always think about worst case scenarios. Yeah, there's like a situation that's up in front of me. A lot of times I run up by Rob, he's always like, Rich, just take it one step at a time. Let's worry about that when it happens. Because I'm always thinking too far in advance. Things I'm always thinking is the negative outcomes. The reason being is because I try so hard to prevent negative outcomes by being prepared for it, which I think is a good thing. But the same token, I find that a lot of times when it happens, it makes me freeze. And it makes me,
What happened?
You're predisposed.
yeah, so like, for example, it makes me hesitant to make certain decisions. And I hesitate too much sometimes. It bogs me down, it was difficult. It's like, let's say, for example, here's a perfect example. We've got a buyer and we do a home inspection. And then the buyer gets this huge, enormous report. I'm already thinking ahead. Oh my God, the seller's gonna freak out. They're gonna say no. Or the buyer is really gonna want the repair done, but the seller's not gonna approve. I think too far in advance on that. It really gets to me.
You can change your approach.
Well, what it says here too, which actually I've started with, helps is labeling my
Yeah.
labeling my
Labeling.
fears, labeling my negativities.
Yeah,
It
well,
does help me go away.
you're having that fear about presenting that information or discussing that information with your buyer, right? That's what your fear is, that your buyer's gonna freak out. Well, if you are already in that mindset, you're gonna subconsciously transpose that
Yeah.
right to the buyer. The buyer's gonna pick up on that.
Yeah.
And that it's gonna scare them more, it's gonna scare you. You're gonna scare them right out of the deal. What you need to do, and you can do very easily, is change your approach. When you call, hey, great news. The inspection came out pretty well. We only have a couple things here that are really concerning. The rest of the stuff is just minimal kind of repairs. And you just need to approach it a different way with a different attitude and a different energy. And that will go right to your buyer. Your buyer will feel better about the report, even though the report might be 10 pages long or 20 things on the report. The 16 things that really don't mean anything, like the switch socket or the outlet that's crooked, or the screw's not right, or whatever silly dumb things that are on the report, which there are a ton of them.
Yeah.
Because that's what inspectors do. That's their job. It's the major things like the plumbing leak or that are really not going to amount to a whole lot. But
Right.
they see the big list and it's overwhelming.
What
They're
helped,
ready to run, right?
what it helped me too is I take the emotion out of it when I present to the buyer. I don't get emotional, but I try to think more logically and rationally and just give them the facts. Here's your report, and I it's kind of helped for me to not so much point out what's bad about the report, but I find myself removing emotion by just simply, educating the buyer on how to interpret the report, how to read the report, how to understand the report, the priorities,
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I mean, I'm gonna kind of debate you guys on this one. Is you know, we're not logical, right?
Right.
So sometimes coming at them with just strict logic initially is not sometimes gonna, you can't just win them over with the logic, right? So sometimes you do have to tip in that, hey, this list is gonna seem enormous.
Right.
You know, but, you know, and then get into like, and that's kind of like where the labeling, like you do address kind of their emotion. And I think you have to, and I think that's part of this is once you do that, then in their mind, oh, it's enormous. And then they see it and they're like, it's not that enormous. Like, right. Like, and I think that's a lot of this is where we can kind of diffuse it by just running at it, you know.
The word I learned a long time ago was reasonable. So like when you're going through the list, like you need to hear them, understand them, repeat it back to them, but then go through the list and say, these are reasonable. Like this is a reasonable request. This is a reasonable request. This is a reasonable request. If it's an unreasonable request, then you have to deal with that. But just to let a seller know or a buyer know what's reasonable or unreasonable helps their thinking.
Sometimes. I'm gonna use the word sometimes because sometimes they think you're not working in their best interest. And that's what I come up against all the time, even though I say, this is a reasonable, repair item, electrical, plumbing, heating, mechanic, they think that everything on the list should be put on there. And then it breaks down the communication because they go, oh, you're a buyer agent and you're not working on our side, that kind of thing. I mean, I know everybody's heard that.
4, fear of loss, primary motivator on human beings.
Hey, Joe, I
Yes.
was thinking about some of the things that were said here and, I look at these principles as like guidelines. But the guidelines never work if you're not a student of your client, if you don't know who your client is and what they are. So for example, I've worked with some clients that they want to negotiate everything. Well, how do we apply this principle to those people? They're going to write unreasonable lists. So we deal with that. We deal with some people will do anything you tell them to do, and they won't write up a list at all if you press them hard enough. So when we're not students of our clients, then this work gets very difficult. These all work hand in hand with this whole process of human interaction with this business transaction. But anyway, I just thought I'd say
Yeah.
that. So for example, I listened with was it Nancy? Nancy, you said there, I thought that is absolutely true. But it's much truer if I don't know anything about my client, if I don't even know what drives them or anything.
Sure.
And so, and we understand that there's some people we work with, we don't know anything about them. They keep us at, and that's fine too as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you may not want to build a business working with those people all the time, which comes to our next chapter, by the way.
Well, it's just how you have to end up approaching it. If you know that your client is in that realm, then just say, okay, we'll put everything down. We'll let the seller respond,
And it eliminates the accusation of you're not working in my best interest.
Correct.
When someone says something like that to me, I'm sure it's been said, I can't remember when, but when someone says something like that to me, I'm like, there's a red flag there. We got to get some things sorted out. It's nothing to do with this negotiation. And that's where the pliability, and I may have used that wrong word incorrectly, is that I gotta fix the problem here before we can move on with the other stuff. We can always bamboozle it through a settlement, but if we're building a referral-based business, that's not going to work long term. So if that's the key, a referral-based business moving forward, then sometimes we have to stop in our tracks, shift gears, and find out what's really going on. And
Well, I think a lot of that's uncovered in the expectations process when you're first dealing with a client and finding out what their expectation is and asking those probing questions. Like, they're buying a resale home and it's like 50-year-old home. It's a 50-year-old home. Their expectations might be unrealistic for a 50-year-old home. Should be looking at maybe a 5 or 10-year-old home. Because if they're averse to maintenance, repairs, and upkeep, that's going to cost a lot of money. A 50-year-old home probably isn't the right property.
which goes back to, are we students of our clients?
Yeah.
So,
Right, knowing your client, right, and them knowing themselves, really knowing what they want, because it looks good on paper, the number, but that doesn't mean it's the right home.
Yeah.
but the reality, I think, excuse me, I don't mean to make a statement like it's definitive, is that we do work with people and we don't really get to know them. But that's that happens as well too, but in terms of when we're reading a book like this, I think of, if I'm gonna take up this book and read it, is how am I gonna be better at what I do? And we can't get away from it, no matter how much we try, about relationships with the people we're working with. We build stronger, better relationships, more long-term relationships. That has to be the goal as we move through these things. So, yeah, we get working with people we should never have worked with. When we close it, great. But that can't be the goal. What am I working with? So as we're looking here in this book about what am I looking for in my clients, is like, if you've no idea what you want, this is just more information to create more confusion, more befuddlement. It's like, what do you want? What are you trying to accomplish? And these tools all help us, pair through where we're trying to go. So I imagine all of us here might be going on different paths for what we want to do with our business, how we're trying to build our business, but there's still a good, better, and best way to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the best way is what we'd be shooting for. So we need to know our clients, whether we like it or not.
Right. And I think the other thing is, into Nancy's point, where we sometimes understand, like, we get a home inspection list, we know what is going to be reasonable, we know what's not going to be reasonable. And we shortcut, we jump straight to the end solution, right? And that's where
But we may not know what's reasonable.
to our client,
whole
correct,
thing.
right? We know what's reasonable based on doing this for 20 some odd years, 30 years, 5 years, whatever it is, right? Like we have an idea professionally, but we haven't brought our client isn't there with us. And that's where we sometimes leave them at the starting block. And that's when they don't trust that we are giving them, the right solution. And that's where sometimes it is hearing them out, understanding them, and working through the process with them. And then sometimes it is in a sense, the seller labels their emotion back to them as that's an unreasonable request, and then now it's not just you who's tried to, right? Like, so that's where sometimes we do have a process that we can work through of the emotions, right?
Right.
We don't have to get them from, I'm buying a 50-year-old house that I expect to be brand new, right? And everything you've negotiated correctly, perfectly for me, because it doesn't necessarily work that way.
So there's another thing I think that's important to that shouldn't be left out, is if you're in the home inspection part of the process, if y'all been on Protex home inspections, they have the same spiel every time, right? They say the same thing every time. What I found to be good practice is to reiterate some of the things that are important, like what we're looking for, what's important, like cosmetic things is not what we're here for today. We're here to find those major issues, so reiterating it, that means they've heard it twice. And at the end of the inspection, I repeat it the third time, because people don't recognize things and absorb them fully until they've heard them 3 times.
Sure.
Within a short period of time. And that's your golden window to set their expectations on a home inspection of what we're there for, what the purpose is.
That's really good. Well, taking back what you said, always put in perspective, always point out to them. A lot of times, especially if it's something that they're not being reasonable about, like say, for example, let's just say hypothetically, the fuse box being double tapped, it's very common. And they're like, oh, I don't want the house if that's the case. And you kind of break and say, would you really walk away from this house because of that? That's fun, this kind of repair could be a $500 repair. Would $500 separate you from being in this house? A lot of times you find really how much they really want the house.
What if it needed a heavy up after you told them that?
Well, I guess a bad example.
Okay, we're at 11 o'clock. I do want to get through the next chapter too. Again, for fear of loss, primary motivator. I think we understand that part of it. Compromise is never equal.
Right.
And this was, you know, and that this is the splitting the difference, right? That was the kind of the crux of his book. People will die over autonomy. And then vision drives decision. And I would tell you with vision, right? Like what vision is. Sometimes there's two types of visions people have. There's experiential, where I've actually done this before, but there's also, you know, I've seen other people do it, or I watched a YouTube video about this, and I have my own experience that is third hand or second hand.
It's also, I think, what they imagine their vision is.
Yeah.
They're
Yep.
in their heart. They've never experienced or seen it, but what they just perceive it to be.
But they've gotten that from somewhere, right? Like if you know,
Wherever, yeah.
yeah, they've picked it up from some type of, they've connected the dots somehow.
Well, the most important aspect is before you can influence them, you have to be able to understand their vision, know what their actual vision is. That's where it's very important to ask those questions. You know, those fact-finding questions to get them a good picture as to what they want. You know, and like, for example, as a seller, you know, what's their expectation when they sell their house? What do they want? You know, is it speed? Is there a dollar amount they need to achieve? Once you find that vision, then once you know that vision, then you can influence them better.
And then I love 28, you know, it's the standing on the opposite side of the street, yelling at the client. You know,
Perfect, right?
that is a perfect,
Yeah.
that is a great example.
I read that, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it's true, you know, I think we sometimes, again, we have our own perspective on how we see things, and we're trying to bring them on over to our side because we know that what's right for them.
You like
Absolutely.
what I tell you.
It's more like a relationship conversation, your children, your spouse, your
Yeah.
Friends. It can be anything, any relationship.
All right. Anything else on chapter 1?
I like the beat the buffalo and run into the storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason for that was pretty strong, by the way.
What's that?
His reasoning for that was pretty strong.
Yeah.
How do you mean?
Well, so if there's a storm coming and say it's a fixed time, what if you, instead of running away from it, anxiety is tied to moving
Yeah.
away? And when you're in it, you're going to be in it for the same length of time. So if you go in it, you will remove the anxiety component, and if maybe your mind says different going in, but that's how I read that. So
Well, the sentence before it, says avoid tough stuff only prolongs the pain.
Yeah.
So you're just avoiding what you need to.
All right, let's hop into, we'll take about 10, 15 minutes. You guys mind going over a little?
well, this is where everything gets challenged right here.
Favorite or fool, chapter 2.
Well, we should have started.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, a whole session on this chapter.
All right, let's throw it out here. What you guys got? Chapter 2.
I mean, it's possibility and probability.
Yes.
On page 35.
35. Okay.
Fools chase possibilities and, you know, favorites focus on probabilities.
Yep.
Knowing the difference, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I was reading this and I listened to the book, and I wasn't listening very well to the book. So, and then I was reading it and I'm getting to this chapter. I'm like, but how? But how? How do I do this? I was like, literally like, are you going to tell me at some point?
Well, then why?
And then they do get into it, luckily, but yeah.
Why questions?
Yeah.
Why me? That's the easiest one. Why'd you choose me?
For me, what's really big is like, you know, the old way of chasing and convincing them to close.
Yeah.
You know, I like the example he gave, whereas put yourself in the shoes, would you rather go on a date with your crush than someone who wore you down until you couldn't say no? And that to me is like huge, because it's like, it makes perfect sense. Because really what I got out of that was the fact that okay, if I really had to convince a person to want to work with me, and he even says in this chapter, then there's a very good chance if something goes sideways, it's really gonna go sideways. They're not gonna be forgiving, they're not gonna be receptive, they're gonna be unreasonable, they're gonna be a nightmare client. And it's like, one thing I found is powerful, which is hard, and this is part of the fear of missing out, is being able to walk away from that. And that was tough.
Yeah.
And especially this goes back to the very beginning about, you know, the dangers of being that agent who's in fight or flight mode. You know, when you're in a position where you feel like, I need to make this deal, then you get desperate. And then you're like, you're willing to take on to that type of a client. And you actually just end up hurting yourself.
That's like settling.
Yeah.
You settle for less.
How do people hand that with referrals? Because invariably I find with the referral stream, 3 or 4 are great, but eventually you hit the whack job wall.
Whack. You gotta go to the referral source
Yeah.
and talk to them about the referral.
That's right.
Yep.
That's the first thing you do.
Yeah.
Cause you don't want the referral to
Go into
come
the
back
referral
and help
source.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And more than likely, the referral source would say, yeah, I should have warned you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because if you're teaching your referrals based well, they're going to refer they're going to give you opportunities. You don't want them over qualifying them, so sometimes there's going to be a couple bad apples.
It's okay to tell somebody they're not a good fit for you. It's okay to walk away from it.
I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, say it in a general
How do
way.
you feel when you fire a client?
I don't feel bad at all about it.
You're right. How many of us have fired clients? It's the most liberating feeling.
Sometimes it really liberates you.
And the sooner you do it, the better, basically.
Right.
Like
Well,
Catherine
they eat
says.
your time.
Yeah.
They eat your time, they tell you how to do your job.
It's a lot easier to do it within the first couple interactions than it is to do it after you've invested a lot of time in it. And you feel like now I committed.
Yep.
And you don't want to let go of that investment you've made.
And then you beat yourself up for not listening to your gut.
Right, right, because
Right.
you chose your paycheck, your paycheck over
Exactly.
the client, over your best judgment.
Correct.
And just knowing your worth, like. I own like a salon business and real estate and other business are super similar.
Yep.
I charge very, like, a lot for my haircut, and when I get a referral, they're like, why do you charge so much? I tell them, that's my experience. You should, don't discount yourself, like, no. I guess confidence.
If you didn't charge enough, you'll know real quickly, they won't complain.
I just won't take them,
Right.
because if you discount one, you're gonna discount all. Right? Right, same applies to everything in life,
Sure.
you gotta be fair.
Bottom paragraph 39. Build your business around the first call. Yep.
Oh, yeah, on page 30.
Yep, on page 39. Yeah. Again, I would tell you, I'm a student of this. This doesn't work real well in written words sometimes. Some of these tactics and tools. This is really very much a voice to voice, face to face type of interaction. Just kind of as a, I tend to go to the keyboard first, and I find that this stuff comes off very flat or can be read incredibly wrong. So just personal experience.
When you say verbally, you mean either over the telephone or by face-to-face interaction?
Correct. Yeah. Because I've tried to use some of the Chris Voss words and whatnot, and then in an email, and didn't work. Just letting you know.
Out of curiosity, like if you identify, I don't think you really touched on that, maybe I'll touch on it later, but if you identify that you're working with somebody and you know that you're the fool, not the favorite, how do you cut ties professionally?
Well, I think according to the book, if you're the fool, you're not gonna be working with them. Because the fool, the favorite is finding out whether you're gonna be working with that person, really is what you're getting to.
Well, at one point later in this chapter, it says that like where it encourages you not to give them too much of value because you're devaluing their service.
That was the best part of the chapter.
I like that.
Right, because it basically is helping you prevent yourself from giving away your real value, like you just said, and working for free.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of making someone commit to me first before I start working for them.
Yeah.
In other words, you're ready to work with me, you're gonna sign an agreement, whether it's a buyer agency agreement, whatever, that I'm gonna be your agent because you really want to work with me. Once that has happened, then you can start giving them your value. But it's the same with a listing contract, like you go in for, somebody calls you for a listing. The part in there where he says that he doesn't want to go in the appointment until he knows he's the favorite.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. So many times I've been on a listing appointment, thought I was the favorite, and I turned out to be the fool. And I was aggravated by it because like you spend so much time preparing for, getting a custom presentation, a hard book. I use hard books. I don't use, the paper,
Digital.
I'm still old school when it comes to that. So I spend a lot of time preparing my presentation because when I go, I'm going to win. That's why I'm there. But what I'm realizing is that if I'm the fool, I don't have a connection with that person, I'm likely the fool. They're just calling me to do their due diligence. They want me to tell them something that they can approach the other agent with.
Yeah. To give them something.
Yeah, they want to just use me to quantify what the other person is telling them.
And the other thing, Rich, you can try to do is get them to come to you for something, right? Like, so sometimes it is very much the chase convince, right?
Yeah.
Where you're constantly, it's give them an opportunity that they actually have to step back across the line. Like sometimes I will, like with recruits, there's times when I just don't feel confident about a recruit. I will actually make them, like, I'll give them some information and I'll, in the email, they have to set up the next appointment with me. I'm not setting it up with them. And I'll find out who's really serious about, are they really interested or are they just, they got to interview 3, right? Kind of thing.
The part I'm not clear on was the fact that it said that you don't present the full presentation if you know you're not the favorite. Does that mean are they suggesting that you should do like a pre-meeting call before you meet with them?
Yeah.
Have a phone call?
Well, Maria, you dealt with that, yeah.
Do what Maria does.
Yeah.
And ask what she did successfully and just spend the whole time asking them questions.
Right.
Getting to know.
Before you get into the actual presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then-
what questions do you ask?
I mean, I can tell you about another experience that I just had where I was definitely the fool. The people called me and they said, I just want to throw one thing out here. Working your personal referrals and asking them for business, because most of when I turn out to be the fool is when I'm going into my farm. Or
Right.
when I got a sign call, or when I got a Zillow lead or something like that. It very rarely happens when somebody's referred me or it's a past client. But I did a phone interview with these people and I was reading the book, so I was very aware, like what's going to happen. And I just started reading the book, so we talked on the phone, and typically I say, I'm going to come over, I'm going to do my listing presentation. If you like everything that you hear from me, are you ready to do paperwork? And so the lady said, yes, I'm ready to do paperwork. So I'm like, oh, good. So then we went back and forth and something changed. And I knew that something changed. And I was like, so I started like asking her questions, and she's like, well, we're going to interview several agents. So I was like, shoot. So I went over and I knew that I should have just said no, but I had to do it, had to put myself through it, went over, gave my listing presentation to the wife. The husband ended up, he couldn't make it. And so he was on Zoom with us. And she was ready to sign the paperwork, but he wasn't. And I left there without the listing, signed listing. And so then I knew that I was the fool, but I decided I was going to pursue them anyway. So I sent them texts and I sent them follow-up emails, and they just ghosted me. And so then I'm finally like, okay, you are the fool, accept it. Bingo, I get a text. Maria, we bought a house. We're ready to talk to you. Come back. I go back, come back. Pat, the husband's going to be home, and meet Pat, and we'll, talk a few things out. So I go over there with paperwork in hand, and the wife's like, we're ready to go. And the husband says, we're not.
Oh, no.
And out the door I go, and I come home and I'm like, no, they're not listing with me. I am the fool in this situation right now. And I say to Bill, like, definitely, I am the fool. And 2 days, so they said they'd let me know after the weekend. And I was there like on a Thursday or something. So Monday, I'm like, hi, Maria, just wanted to see how you guys are doing, and, how can I help? And sorry, we chose another agent. That was it.
Yeah.
So first, did you know who the decision maker was?
Well, obviously it was the husband. I didn't know that.
Right, ahead of time, right.
Yep.
And you were
Because
getting
the
the
husband, the
information.
wife kept saying yes, but the
Right.
husband kept saying no.
You connected with the wife and you were having the interaction with her, and the husband was totally disconnected from you.
Totally. And I don't know what it was, because it's like he said in the book, I left there going, there's no other agent better than me. Like, if they choose another agent, they're not getting the best. But they did, for whatever reason. And I mean, it could have boiled down to commission, but we didn't even really talk about commission much. So I don't know. I know I'm a fool. I know that.
Well, let's see. And you go to something logical, right? Like, it had to have been, is it my marketing plan? Is it my commission? Is it my length of my listing agreement? There could have been something emotional, right?
Right.
Like they had already, he wanted a man, right? Or
It could have been gender.
he wanted a blonde. He wanted
Honestly, I feel like they got a referral in between the first phone call and the second phone call. I feel like they got a referral from somebody, because when I asked her, how did you find me? She said, well, your signs are everywhere, and I see you in Safeway, and we get your mail.
Yeah.
And my daughter said, what the heck, Mom? Call her.
But that's about you, though.
Right.
How did they choose their last agent?
I never asked him any of those questions. I just really cracked open the book, and I didn't have
No, it's good. I
have to say, it's going to be really hard for me to walk away. When I know that I'm the fool, it's still going to be hard for me to walk away.
100%.
I want to hear how y'all do it, because
But Maria, that's with everybody. Everybody feels that good somewhere. And to tell you the truth, you're an excellent agent. Don't second doubt yourself.
Right.
And some kind of weird emotional decision, and
but I think
you
it's
just didn't have the art of finessing it out.
right.
I think what would be really helpful is for us to, role play with the questions. Write a list of. I started to write a list of questions.
I think what it might have been, Maria, is your initial meeting with him. She was present and you're face to face with her, and he was on the Zoom. So you were only able to effectively make her feel understood, and not him. And it gave him the opportunity to make a decision before you had the opportunity to connect with him.
That's probably true.
And he invited you back just to do his due diligence, because he already made a decision on another agent. And he heard your piece, and that was it.
Yeah. He kept saying, he kept saying, I want an agent who's done business in this community. Well, I gave him a list of 155 Damascus families.
Correct.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? Like, I have it on
He gave
record
you-
in the MLS. Here's 155 families I've served in Damascus.
Right. He gave you a logical kind of request, but he had emotionally made a difference. And I think that's, so in this chapter, it's are they calling me specifically or just agents? Right? Do I fit the profile, right, of the agent they've selected before? And I think this is where we probably come up with this list, right? These, what is it, 5, 7 things? How many are there in here? 5? Can I make an emotional connection? 4 is on page 51. Is the conversation collaborative? And then 5, are they opposed to making a commitment up front? And that's it. Do you have the book, Maria?
No, I have it on audio. I got.
I'm bringing you the book tomorrow.
Here today, I'm like, I gotta.
I'm gonna be like, I'm like Oprah. You're getting a book.
Thank you. I need a book.
You're getting a book. Yeah, the book. I would say I listened to the book too, and I missed these points. It
Yeah.
went way over
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
So.
But
I
I did write down, like I made notes. I wrote down, can I make an emotional connection? I'm looking for a that's right, not you're right. I can tell you I never got a that's right out of that man. I tried so hard to get him to say that's right, and he never would. It was in my mind.
So the basic question is, did you ask about what their concerns were? Was it market time? Was it price? Was it their move? What was their motivation to move? All those things?
I mean, I have it all like
I
I sat right with them with these questions in my hand and took notes.
With him too?
Well, yes, with them, but these questions, with all the agents you have to choose from, why did you choose me? Why are you not using the agent you worked with before? I didn't ask them that. What do you want in an agent? I did ask them that. No, I didn't. I did on the other one that I did get. I asked them, what are you looking for in a real estate agent? I didn't ask them how they made decisions in the past, and I didn't ask them how you'll know when you've met the right person. Like, I gotta practice that. These don't feel comfortable to me at all.
Because you're afraid of what, and I'm saying you, I mean, me too. I'm looking in a mirror. We're afraid to hear what that answer is because, like, I know I can convince them to work with me because I have 150 listings in the MLS that are on their street, right? Like, I can convince. I want social media. I'll crush whoever is coming against me on social media, right? Like, I know that. So I'm not going to ask these other questions that are going to give me a negative answer.
So Maria, change your outlook of what the person you're going to work with, whether you want to work with a partner or a hostage. You want to be hostage to these people, or do you want to be a partner with them?
Definitely want to be a partner.
Yeah, hostage sucks.
Why does it have to be so hard? But I mean, I will say, I cannot tell you how many times I've been the fool. And I'm a pretty successful agent. If you know how much time I've been the fool where I could have had that time back with Bill or my kids, or I might have canceled on a friend because I wanted to go on the listing appointment, and I don't know. Now I'm just kind of like, I want to learn a better way. I really want to learn a better way. I don't want to be the fool. Yeah.
Well, I apologize. We're over time.
Oh, shoot.
No. What I want to do though is let's dive into this next week on the end of chapter 2, because I think this is where the meat of it. I mean, this is the key, is these 5 self questions that turn into verbal questions to our clients. Can we do that? Want to dig into that?
Practicing too, like we
Yeah.
did with the other book, we should practice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think let's come up with out of these 5, because this is telling you don't ask the clients these questions directly. But within these questions you're asking yourself, you will come up with questions to ask the client. Let's do that. Let's come up with the best in class kind of questions to ask. Make sense?
Makes sense.
So it's end of chapter 2 through.
End of chapter 2, we're going to kind of dig back. We're going to
Just do
discuss
that
this.
in next session.
And now we're going to do, and then we'll keep going 3 through 4. Yep.
Joe, will you give my book to Heather and she can drop it off at
Yeah, I'll be
Clarksburg
there.
for me?
I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
Yeah.
you. All
Yeah.
righty.
All right, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much. Yeah.
Maria, who
Yeah.
who got the listing? Was it a man?
They haven't listed yet, so,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
Posted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I will. I'll keep you, but there's another agent that's kind of popular, getting some traction in Damascus, and I'm wondering if it's her. And I'm sure she, I don't know, could be that her kids and these kids went to school together. I don't know.
And watch you be an agent from Virginia.
I'll die. I'll just die.
But, yep. Okay. Thank you all.
Bye.
Joe.